probate.
The board has a right to set the budget. They do not have a right to interfere with how the personnel budget is spent. That's the rule. But you do have a right to set the overall budget for the office.
But then, what is our right when they exceed that budget?
My personal feeling would be you have a right to cut off the money.
But I understand if it's
Then
being
we go
used
to
for
court.
salaries, we cannot cut off the money.
How the constitutional officer allocates his budget is his business. How you set his budget is your business. So the overall budgetary power is set in the board of commissioners for all these offices.
So when someone doesn't get a paycheck on Friday, what happens?
My suggestion would be that if you're going to not pay a paycheck, it'd be a vendor paycheck instead of a personnel paycheck for the reasons I stated earlier.
Then we have a choice then.
We do have a choice that we.
You got a choice, but it's just whether it just, all the options are unpleasant ones.
So you're telling me we can quit paying their bills?
If they exceed the budget.
And we're talking about total budget, because we don't set their budget in between, we set them a total
Total
budget.
budget, right.
So, my thing is, and I'm gonna bring this up again, and we need to consider it during the budget. If we give the constitutional officers 1/10 of their budget for the first 10 months, and they don't get anything from us the last 2 months, and they have to budget it, and they have to pay their bills. And just like we do with, not EMS, 911 and everything else. They can't pay their bills, and too bad.
Bear in mind, they also have to agree to it.
For the installment type situation, the only history behind that is one where the board got the constitutional officers to agree to it. I think that, with respect, that might be different to get the year end than the budget spent.
I just think we need to do something. I don't know, I'd like to see the law that says we can't give them 1/10 of their budget for 10 months.
There's not a law that says that. It's just, the only successful example of that is one where it's been agreed to. I'm not saying that you couldn't do it and get by with it. I don't know the answer to it. Never been to court.
What if you paid it out over 12 months? Do they have a choice on that?
Again, what I'll come back to, Commissioner, Mr. Chairman, is when you get to the amount of their budget, you have notified them 12 months ahead, that's how much money they've got to live off of. And if you don't believe there's a good reason for that budget to have been exceeded, I see no reason why they could not be held to living off the budget they knew 12 months ago.
Exactly right.
Was going to be how they had to expend. When you're paid your salary every year, you know how much you've got to spend.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I believe back in 2007, 2008, I got the documents from the one county that had actually done this, divided it up. And I think it was the county manager at the time went to the constitutional officer and asked them if they would agree to it. They said no. So, you know, we could try it again. In accordance with what Jim said, when we can get, I had the documents actually produced by ACCG. I got them from ACCG. I forget which county it was. It was
Miller County.
Miller, it was a small county, and they had the same issues we had. And I went to a presentation, a couple of hours long presentation on this. I forgot most of it, but we did bring it up, and then they rejected it. They wouldn't do it. But the key here is what Jim said in the past, and that's that they have to agree to it. If they don't agree to it, then we're back to the start.
Let me just, why do they have to agree to it? If we have the budget, and we set the budget, and we're the ones signing the checks. If we continue to sign the checks, why would they agree to anything?
As I remember,
It's just like my daughter, if I say, hey, you got a $10 a week allowance, and I give her a credit card, and she spends $100 a week, and I keep paying the bill, how do you think that's going to work?
Mr. Chairman,
It's the same thing.
I think it was Terry O'Quinn up in Henry County. Michael Quinn. Michael Quinn was the one presenting this at that ACCG meeting that I went to. And again, it was a couple hours long, and I'm trying to summarize it in 5 minutes, but basically he said, I think he was the one who actually negotiated it. He said, to make it binding, they actually have to agree to it.
As far as the installment, that's absolutely correct.
Yeah.
But
The law basically says that as long as you give them a sufficient budget to perform their mandated jobs, you've budgeted what they have to have. That's your requirement. That's your baseline.
But they just not gonna be that, they need more salary.
if they have a budget and we give them 1/12 of it the first of every month, just like we do our agencies that we pay money to, are we giving them a sufficient budget to run their business?
The overall number is a sufficient budget issue, Mr. Chairman. If you've given them X number of dollars for the year and it's adequate to perform their mandated duties, you've given them a sufficient budget. That calls back to the, if you recall, the case that I've given y'all 2 or 3 times. Remember the Henry County Police Department case? Where they took the police chores away from the county sheriff and created a police department. It was a 46% reduction in that budget that year. And the courts approved that by saying that they no longer needed that much money to perform the mandated duties because of the amount of duties had slipped down. So the courts have been very supportive of boards of commissioners on budget items, so long as you don't dictate within their budget how they spend their money.
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman,
Chairman, Mr. Chairman,
I would suggest that if we're interested in doing this, we have a couple of folks meet with Terry O'Quinn, who's up in McDonough, Michael Quinn, and up in McDonough, and find out exactly the details of how to do this. I may even have some of the documents out somewhere, but he's the expert at this, because he's the only one who's been able to do it. So maybe we ought to have somebody meet with him and figure out how to do it.
I will tell you, I think it'll be a waste of time because we've got constitutional officers that are not gonna agree to it, and they're the very ones that overspend.
Well, this is gonna be my suggestion.
Understand?
I will draft a letter to, Dan and, to Linda, let them know, what their current budget is. So for example, as of March, the Superior Court had a remaining budget of $73,000, and, salaries has a remaining budget of $49,000, and subtract that and tell him this is the money that he has to spend through the last 3 months of the year.
So
Would that be sufficient?
Yes.
That would be within the law.
Perfect.
Okay.
And salaries include match and
All right.
retirement and everything?
Well, I will, yes. And this is a question for you, Jim. Should I do it based on expected salaries or based on what's left for
I
budget?
do it based on what's left.
Okay.